myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good afternoon, welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Ross Gregory joins me this sunny, slightly overcast now, but sunny Tuesday. How are you, Ross?
I'm good, thanks, Steve. How's yourself?
All good, mate. All good. And first of all, as we often do, we look back on the last fixture that Newcastle United played. 2-2 draw against Leeds. Disappointing result, I guess. We all were hoping that was going to be 3 points in the bag. But it's another point towards the Champions League slot, Ross.
Yeah. I'm still not sure if it's a point gained or 2 points lost, Steve, if I'm being honest. Even, what are we, kind of 72 hours on from the game, if not a bit longer. I'm still not sure how to take that result, how to take that point. I think you look at the last 4, 5, 6 games on the running, and you target 2 or 3, thinking, right, this is 3 points. This is a game that you've got to be going into and winning. But we did say, I think we said on this show last week, Steve, that there's some funny games at this point. There's some funny results. Sorry, at this point of the season, you do get some surprise results. You see Southampton drawing 3s each with Arsenal. You see Everton going to Brighton and winning 5-1. You do see some odd results, and as the pressure kind of builds and the stakes become higher and higher, then it can have that effect on teams, both positively and negatively. And there was obviously a positive effect for Leeds, and under their new manager, they're obviously a bit more disciplined and organised, better organised. And for Newcastle, it's just feels like we're tottering towards the end. We're kind of scrambling towards the line, trying to get over it. And it just creates a whole load of kind of pressure and tension among the players, the fan base, everybody. So look, it was better than losing. It was a point that moves you 1 point closer. It's definitely that's the kind of the positive spin on it. But for me, I think is a 2 points drop, quite possibly. You 2-1 up with what, 15 minutes to go against a team that's second, third, bottom of the league. You hope that you can hang on. Wasn't to be. It could prove at the end of the season to be a vital point if Newcastle go and beat Brighton, go and beat Leicester, beat Chelsea, whoever. It doesn't matter as long as they get over that line, and it could be a vital point in helping that. But hopefully it doesn't come to bite us on the backside at the end of the season.
Yeah, it is disappointing, but I'm still very confident that Liverpool win, Manchester United win. It cranks up the pressure. We've still got a game in hand, still in our hands. We've got 2 home games to come. Brighton, of course, Thursday, Leicester early next week. Chelsea away on the final day of the season. Let's hope it doesn't go to that. I mentioned on the fans forum last night, I was a bit disappointed he took Callum Wilson off. Look, Eddie Howe gets paid to make the big decisions. I just felt, Callum Wilson he's on a roll. He's in the form of his season, and he was on a hat trick, and no room for sentimentality. But I think he was doing a good job holding the line, and 2 pressure penalties, Ross, and dispatched them both with aplomb. Yeah,
he's in a real kind of rich vein of form, isn't he? I think he's. His performances over the last month have been outstanding. Real kind of calmness and been clinical in front of goal. No more so than with those 2 penalties, which were superbly dispatched. I think he's he in terms of the substitution. You could make a case for keeping Callum Wilson on. You could make a case, obviously, for fresh legs as well. I think he was unlucky to be hooked, but if Newcastle had gone on and won that game, we wouldn't probably been talking about it. I don't think the change necessarily made us massively weaker or affected the result too much. But as long as hopefully he's fit and there's no issues, and he can start it on against Brighton on Thursday if selected, and put in another good performance, and hopefully add a few more goals and get Newcastle over the line.
Yeah, internet's a bit of a problem with you, Ross. We can hear you loud and clear, but your picture is not great. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to run the ads now, and I'll let you maybe just go out, come back in or whatever, but I'll run the ads.
A big shout out to all our sponsors. Thanks to Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can order them from their website, mrvickies.co.uk, or by calling 01768 210 102. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video technology. Thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle. If you enjoy the show, please hit the little thumb under the video and like the video. Click share to share to your other social media, or subscribe. It's free, and we do 7 shows a week. If you want to become a member, you can click join underneath this video. There are different packages to suit all different pockets. And if you want to become a cult member, then put your smartphone over the QR code. It'll take you straight there to the website, which is nufcmatters.com. If you go in via the website, just click membership pack. What do you get for your money? You get a pen, you get a cup, you get a membership card and a scarf, and entry into the monthly draw. Don't forget, we are available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. And we also support the food bank on this show. NUFCfansfoodbank.co.uk is where you'll find the matchday bucket. You can make a virtual donation today. We've also got some events coming up over the next couple of months. An evening with Peter Beardsley at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets available from newcastlelegends.com, or go to Voucher and get a 40% discount. Our end of season do is the 27th of May at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are a tenner from nufcmatters.com. An evening with Gavin Peacock takes place on July the 10th at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets from nufcmatters.com for that event. And the following night, Gavin will be at the Tynemouth Surf Cafe. Go to their website for ticket information. We've got a vast range of t-shirts, merchandise and memorabilia available at our website. The Isaac t-shirt is doing well. Go to nufcmatters.com to buy one today.
Okay, Ross, back with you. Ultimately as well, I think the big talking point from the weekend was Eddie Howe. How he was approached by a supporter. What did he make of that incident?
Look, it's really, really disappointing and disturbing that a fan, a supporter, can get that close to a manager. I don't know what on earth the security staff, the stewards, everybody else around around Elland Road were doing and thinking of it. Fortunately, it ended well in the sense that there was no major harm done, and it was the lad, the person in question's been given a ban and order and banned from the stadium, and rightly so. But I think it just reinforces that we need to have strong security at football stadiums. There's 50,000 people there at a lot of grounds. 35,000 there on Saturday. The majority of people, 99.9%, are well behaved, but it only takes one idiot. It only takes one person with a grudge, or who's had too much to drink or whatever else they're taking, or the passions are getting too high or whatever. I think we need to hopefully it's a wake up call for me, Steve, just around security around players and managers and staff, and making sure that the stewards and the police and everything else like that are on the ball, not just there just picking up a nice paycheck or just watching a game. They've got to be there to protect enforce crowd control.
The other question that I raised last night on the fans forum was the Bruno situation. He doesn't look himself. Do you think it's a bit of fatigue? Do you think he's carrying the ankle?
I don't know what it is, Steve. I think if I was a betting man, I'd say it was the ankle. I just think he's just not moving. He's not moving freely. He doesn't look happy. Doesn't look happy in his work. Doesn't look. That he's got the same buzz or the same energy. If Newcastle had another option, I'm fairly certain he wouldn't be playing every week. He wouldn't be playing every game. They just don't have that anybody else who can sit in that role, who can play that role. And partly, even a 60-70% fit Bruno is still a better option than most others that Newcastle have at the minute. It goes back to January and not replacing John Joe Shelby and making Newcastle a little bit weaker in that area. But he's certainly not right. And I think there is some tired bodies. There's some tired, fatigued players in that Newcastle squad at the minute, carrying a few knocks and niggles and bumps and bruises and stuff like that. At the end of the season, it can't come quick enough for me. I think we all just hope that we can get over the line into that Champions League place and then rest and recuperate. And someone like Bruno, when he's fit and flying, we know how good he is. We really know how good he is, but he's certainly not at that level at the minute. And I think it's having a negative effect on the rest of the team as well, because he's just not able to power them on and be that force that he has been over the last 6 months.
Yeah, I would agree. He's wouldn't surprise me if at the end of the season they say he's gone in for a minor operation and he'll be all right for the start of the season. But we'll wait and see what happens with that. From our perspective as well, the free kicks, the corners, the set pieces in general, they were lacking again at the weekend. We've said this for long enough now. We just don't seem to be very good at corners. We've got a big set of lads in there, and we just don't seem to be. We're trying different things, but all of it seems to be along the ground and aimed at finding somebody at the edge of the box. But we're not chucking the ball into the mixer, if you like, and looking for 6'4", 6'5" Dan Burn or the bigger lads in our team.
Yeah, it's an interesting one again. I think so. At times, I don't think the delivery's been great. I think it's been quite. Kieran Trippier can put a fantastic ball into the box. His set pieces can be outstanding, but I think Newcastle have got a little bit stale with some of the stuff that they're doing. What I would say as well is that even though that they've got Dan Burn, Sven Botman, Joe Linton, a few others who are big lads, 6'3", 6'4", big units. The size of it doesn't matter too much in the sense of it's about your movement, it's about your timing, it's about attacking the ball, it's about finding that space, it's about everything else like that. Some of the best headers of the ball, some of the best players are getting on the end of crosses and corners and set pieces and whatever. You're not always the 6'2", 6'3" blokes. It's look at Alan Shearer, 5'11", 5 foot, less than 6 foot, in the amount of corners and set pieces he got onto, just through desire, through movement, through timing of the jump, of the run. Same with Les Ferdinand. It's not always about your size. You look at some players like so at Liverpool, Firmino, brilliant in the air, Jota, brilliant in the air. Michael Owen was excellent from crosses. It was all about getting in that half of space and getting away from a defender and attacking the ball from there. So I think it's not just about the delivery. I just think someone like Dan Burn and Sven Botman, they've never had, Dan Burn's never been a goal scoring centre half or a goal scoring defender in his entire career. It's just not part of his game. Whereas you do get some defenders who are excellent at that. Jamal Sells attacks balls and gets looks more of a threat from set pieces. So part of me thinks the delivery does need to be mixed up and does need to be better. But I think the movement, the desire, the timing of the runs, the attacking of the ball, finding that little half a yard of space has got to be much better from the players in the box as well.
Lots of comments coming in. I'm confident we can win 2 games, says Tell, and just get over the finish post. Villa need a win. They want Europa League and they play Liverpool at the weekend. And I would agree that that's a big game. You don't sound confident, Ross, says John. That's perhaps understandable. Thursday is crucial and the crowd might be vital. We did have a question on Twitter, which I want to ask before I lose it. And that was from Kiki Delendo. Says, question for Ross. Does he feel that Howe is outspoken enough on the way that teams target our players with fouls and get no protection from the referee? The top managers always highlight this, which results in favourable decisions. I feel he's too nice and diplomatic at times. So, I mean, take the Leeds game, for example. Newcastle were kicked from pillar to post in the first half, yet the first yellow card was for Bruno allegedly diving in the second half. I get Kiki's point. What's your take? Should he be a bit more outspoken?
Not for me. No, absolutely not. I think as a manager or as someone who follows the club, as somebody who's a fan of the club, I want my manager, I want my representatives in the club to handle themselves with dignity, to handle themselves with class, to rise above that sort of thing. I don't want them to go down I don't want Eddie Howe to go down the route of some other managers. And you know, we could quite easily name them on here who are outspoken in the media, who berate refs, who try the mind games, who show a complete lack of class and respect for referees, officials, other managers, other teams. That's not what I want from a Newcastle manager, and I'm quite happy with Eddie Howe's approach. I think he's not overly nice. He's firm and he's fair, but I don't want. That's not what I would like to see from a manager. I understand it's part of the game. There's a bit of gamesmanship going on and trying to put pressure on, but that's just my honest opinion. I'm quite happy with the way Eddie Howe approaches games, the way he approaches his press conferences and his media duties, and the way that he speaks on behalf of Newcastle United. And I wouldn't really want that to change.
Yeah, it's a big point that people are making. John says, and Jody Tumbalai says, remember, Villa want Europa League, so they will be trying to get something off Liverpool. And of course, yeah, again, another good point by Jody Tumbalai. Football is strange. Villa fans will want us to win against Brighton because they want European football. We want Villa to beat Liverpool. Not the best of fan bases on Twitter. Very, very strange. Okay, we'll come to a few of the questions in the chat now. Sutty, good afternoon. Watched the Leicester game last night and the camera zoomed in on Dan Ashworth in the crowd. Maybe checking out Maddison and Barnes. If so, hopefully he had a cheeky chat with one of them or both. Yeah, Dan Ashworth was in the crowd last night. Always interesting when the cameras pick somebody out. He would certainly have been looking at somebody, wouldn't he?
He will, yeah, no doubt at all. Although I don't think at the same time, I don't think scouting players is his remit. I think he's got other players who will be doing that. I don't think he'll be going and producing a scouting report on James Maddison or Harvey Barnes or anybody for that matter. So he might have been there for a number of different reasons, but Newcastle's interest in those two players is well documented. Leicester look in a world of bother, don't they? Look in a real mess. I can't see them getting out of it now. You never know because of the as we've touched upon, the way that the games kind of flux and fixtures and results kind of surprise you. But I just can't see Leicester getting out of that mess now. And if they do go down, there'll be a sharp exodus of players. You'll not see a number of those hanging around. They'll be looking for further options in the Premier League or abroad, and I'm sure Newcastle will be at the front of the queue for a couple of players.
John says an 80% Bruno's better than 199% someone else. Highlights a lack of depth in the squad, but remember the project has just started. Bruno's been pictured with an ankle strap, says Paul. He's definitely carrying an injury. And Les, good afternoon. I just hope Newcastle do it without relying on any of the results. That way, silly pundits can't say We were lucky. We have earned this. And talking of silly pundits, I couldn't believe that reaction, to be perfectly honest, on TalkSport. Michael West just asking you, what's your thoughts on TalkSport? Max Rushton, who made the comment that Eddie Howe shouldn't have any complaints regarding the fan approaching him on the touchline because of the club's connection with the Saudi connection. I mean, it was a strange comment, that. I mean, no matter what your political beliefs or your beliefs about the takeover, to say that was just, it was ludicrous. And he hasn't even been questioned on it.
I've only seen little bits of it on Twitter. People talking about it on social media. I've not heard what he said himself. If that's what he did say, then I'll be honest, Steve, it's not even befitting of a response. Stuff like that's just people trying to get a response, trying to get a bite, trying to get a nibble out of fans. It's just nonsense. Absolute pathetic. If that is what he said, like I say, I haven't said it, and my view on a lot of stuff like that is the more you respond to them, the more oxygen do you know what I mean? The more oxygen you give them, the more it fuels the fire. So sometimes people like that or comments like that are just best off being ignored.
Yeah. John says, Ross, should Eddie not be quizzed about a poor corners at the press conference, or is it a bit too sensitive because it implies criticism? Fans have been saying the same about this for ages. Yeah,
he should. He absolutely should. A journalist's job is not there to be a cheerleader. It's to ask the questions that fans are asking. It's to be that kind of voice of the fans. You're in a privileged position as a journalist, in that you get a chance to speak to these people. You get a chance to speak to Eddie Howe or to Kieran Trippier or to Bruno or to Callum Wilson or whoever, and putting the questions, if fans have got them, to these people, I think is absolutely fair, part and parcel of the game. I think Eddie Howe probably does, should be questioned on it, and maybe does need to comment on why the situation is, the corner situation isn't great. Personally, I'd be also asking, what work's been done on the training ground around set pieces, but also around the defensive situation as well. 1 clean sheet in 17. Now, I think these are the questions that you can't ask of a manager. It's how you frame them in a press conference. You're not going in there full of criticism. Newcastle are third in the league, third in the Premier League table, so it's not about criticism. It's just about you want to improve certain things. Eddie, you'll not be happy with 1 clean sheet in 17. You'll not be happy with the lack of threat from set pieces. What's been done? How are you working hard on the training ground? There's ways of kind of framing these questions without implying criticism. So yeah, I've got no problem at all with that.
It was a good point that Tom put up yesterday. Our evening kickoff results, as opposed to our afternoon kickoff results, are far more enjoyable. 9 wins, 2 draws, and no losses with the nighttime kickoffs, Ross. Something in a nighttime atmosphere under the floodlights.
Quite possibly. I've not seen that stat. It's really good, isn't it? It's I think the fans have got a lot of credit to take from that. Certainly at home, Newcastle's fan base on an evening game is can be quite fervent. It can intimidate the opposition, and it can inspire the home team as well. So hopefully we see more of that on Thursday night against Brighton under the lights at St James's. Having said all that, I've written a piece this morning on it. It'll be going up on the Chronicle this afternoon at some point, hopefully, once we get it published. I think that Newcastle have to adopt a slightly different approach on Thursday. I think they need to be a bit more patient. I don't think they need to be fully gung-ho and full of, kind of overly press and over intensity. I think they need to be quite measured and patient in some of their play on Thursday, given the nature of the opposition and what Brighton can do. But look, the results under the lights under Eddie Howe has been fantastic. So long may it continue. Yes,
long may it continue indeed. Madison looks like he's given up and he's ready to move on, says Darren. Transfers always on people's minds. Anything on Boslai, as I've called him on here. I keep trying to get the pronunciation right. So Boslai, I think, might be the best I can do. He's been linked with Newcastle. Obviously, the Chronicle's been covering this over the last few days.
Yeah, it's a name that's cropped up. I don't know anything about him to be honest, or often more than what I've read or what's been written. So I wouldn't be able to give any insight there. But look, Newcastle are going to be linked with a number of different players, and they need to strengthen in all departments. For me, they need to strengthen at the back. They need to strengthen. And certainly in that central midfield area alongside Bruno and possibly with a 10, and they need to bring in another forward or wide forward capable of contributing goals, in my opinion. So they'll be linked with plenty, but as for this player, I've got no insight on that one, I'm afraid.
I see we're linked with Conor Gallagher again. Would he move to the north as he was against us in January? I can't see that happening. I really can't.
I can see this one happening in the sense that he's a player that Newcastle like. He's a player that the Eddie Howe and other people around the club like. Whether he wants to move, whether he would move is a different question, I suppose. But he is somebody that they like, and they've shown with Anthony Gordon, with Sven Botman, that if they get knocked back a first time or they don't manage to land the deal initially, that they're not afraid of then returning to it further down the line. So all I know is he's somebody that is on their favoured list, if you like. Whether it's a deal that they can do, we'll just have to wait and see.
Lots of other players being linked, and we'll be doing a lot of that in the summer, of course. Couple of questions though. Sparky wants to know, do you think we'll sign a big keeper in the summer? In my opinion, Pope hasn't been the same since the red card against Liverpool.
I don't think it's a priority. I think they'll have to have their priorities in terms of the summer. So I'd be surprised if they brought a keeper in to replace Nick Pope. Certainly this summer and over the next 12 months. I felt that Nick Pope was at fault for the first goal. I don't know what other people think on. Yeah, I've seen kind of split views on social media and elsewhere when I've been speaking to people about it. So I thought he could have done better with the initial header, and I thought he was slightly at fault. But look, the season that he's had, to pick out the odd error is unfair. He's produced some wonderful saves. He's produced some fantastic performances, and he's a big part of why Newcastle are third in the league at the minute.
Yep. Do you think we'll sign a big name keeper? Is that one? But we've also got this one from Jimmy. Do you think we need another striker? If so, will Newcastle get a big striker like Vlahovic or younger one like Ekitike?
Yeah, I do think they need another forward. I think certainly going into Europe, which Newcastle will be playing in Europe next season, just depends on which competition. The needs and the demands of the squad are such that they need more depth. They've only really got two forwards, two central strikers in Callum Wilson and in Alexander Isak, who can both play there. I think they need to bring in a third. I would be more inclined to think that it would be a younger model, like an Ekitike or somebody else around the leagues, the European leagues, who they might be able to bring in for a kind of reduced fee, but also somebody who they can develop and grow, rather than bringing in a big name striker. Because all things being well, Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak will still probably be your top two strikers next season, and then having that kind of backup for some of the European games, for the volume of games that have been played, I think's an absolute must. But yeah, we'll wait and see. It's going to be an interesting summer, isn't it?
Oh, certainly is, Ross. Certainly is. Regarding Conor Gallagher, in my opinion, we only go back in if we're getting positive noises from the player himself. Otherwise, why waste our time? Ian, you're persistent. He says, if we win the next two home games and qualify, will Ross bow to his fans' wishes and wear his stripy Nana's jumper?
I'll wear anything you like, Ian.
There you go. Good afternoon, David. Thanks for joining us, mate. Ross, any news on how Longstaff is coming on? I guess we'll find out tomorrow.
Yeah, I think so. It's there's a few different mixed messages coming out. He's obviously going for or was going to be having another scan and see how that comes out. Some of the talk was that it wasn't as serious enough that would absolutely rule him out for the rest of the season, but it was a little bit touch and go. That's why they were wanting to keep an eye on it and get it reassessed. I think he's been a massive miss, Steve. I really do. I think with Bruno not firing on all cylinders, that right hand side, what he offers Kieran Trippier in terms of protection, but to allow him to push on, also support him defensively. The energy, the intensity, the work rate that he brings to that team. I think anybody who is still questioning what Sean Longstaff brings to the Newcastle team and questioning his place has probably had to reassess their opinion over the last month or so. He's it's a shame that it's a shame in a lot of ways that a player has to sit out the team, has to be absent for people to fully appreciate what he does. But he's been excellent, and I'm really, really keeping my fingers crossed that he can return before the end of the season, because I think his return, if Newcastle can somehow get him patched up and get him fit and obviously in good enough shape to play a part in the last 3 games, then that could be the difference between Champions League football or not. And it's that simple for me.
Yeah, good afternoon, Sedan Smith. The jumper will do, Ross, mate, says Ian. Could you guys please educate me on the offside rule, please? What is the difference between the Jones VAR call last night and Isak's against Liverpool last year? We'll tie this in with the footage that was made available by Howard Webb at the weekend of VAR in action and the communication between the referee at the Newcastle West Ham game and the VAR control. Did you see that, Ross?
I didn't, Steve. No, I've got it saved on the planner, and it's something I'm going to watch when I get a chance. I was out last night, so I didn't get a chance to watch it. By all accounts, it was really quite enlightening, I suppose, from what I've heard. Maybe it's something that we should be looking to do more of moving forward. Getting the refs mic'd up, having that transparency around what the decision making process is. I think can only be a benefit for the game. I don't think it has to be shrouded in secrecy. You get to hear the conversations in other sports, so why not in football? But yeah, a lot of people have come out and said it was quite positive. Did you say it, Steve? What was your view on it?
Yeah, I think it's as complicated and as bizarre as I expected it to be. Conversation, is between the referee and the VAR officials' room, and you can hear the referee, trying to appease Declan Rice, who is questioning whether it's a goal or whether it's not, and whether it's offside or whether it's not, and he's shouting Deck. It was quite distracting actually, when you listen to it. But ultimately, he then apologizes at the end for getting for getting it wrong. So I think it's just the whole system, the lines. It's like trying to work out Pythagoras' theorem to get something which used to be so simple. You either got it right or you got it wrong, and it balances out over the course of the season. And I still think they're getting far too many wrong. I think this idea of broadcasting it will certainly help. I think maybe because it's all played out on Sky and BT. Maybe we have Howard Webb once a week coming out and explaining the decisions. Maybe that would help. It wouldn't help on the day. It wouldn't, and practice makes perfect. We'll get it. We're going to get it right over a period of time. But I think maybe Howard Webb given a bit more transparency each week. Maybe even you can't have an appeals system, but it's just crazy. Some of these teams could end up going down by 1 point, and it could be down to a VAR mistake. And some teams could win the league in the future, and it could be down to a VAR problem. That's the situation we're in, Ross.
No, absolutely. But I think there's two elements to that, Steve. The way I would respond to that is that there's always been instances where clubs have been relegated via a point or from a decision that's been made, or a ball that was over the line, or a goal that was disallowed that shouldn't have been disallowed, or a goal that wasn't given, or whatever. So that goes back quite a way. The issue I have with VAR is that it was brought in to eradicate all this, and it's actually, in my opinion, making things worse, because the expectations and the levels and the technology is there, but it's not being implemented in the right way. It's still being implemented by referees who are either good enough or not, who are interpreting the rules in different ways and not. And I think it's that's the issue I've got with VAR, is that what's it actually improved for me? Nothing, absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I would agree. It's made the game a little bit more frustrating and a bit more confusing at times. So yeah, they've got to do something with it. And the pre-season is time to look at it. Jimmy says, I feel Trippier has dropped off a country mile on the set pieces. James Ward-Prowse with the Saints going down might be a good buy. The lad takes a kick like anyone in England, if not better. Yeah, James Ward-Prowse came up last night on the fans forum. Seemed to be hit and miss. I've got to be perfectly honest, between the people on the chat last night and the people on the screen on the panel. Some were up for James Ward-Prowse. Some felt it wouldn't be an upgrade.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sold on James Ward-Prowse. I think he's obviously a fantastic player, great technical ability and everything else like that. But is he somebody who fits in with the way that Eddie Howe wants to play, the style, the philosophy? I don't know. I've not. What I would also say about Ward-Prowse is that I don't watch him week in, week out. I've never, I don't see enough of him in that sense. But I think sometimes you've got to be wary of match of the day players as well. Players who look great on a highlights reel, when you've got 6 or 7 minutes of footage. Do you see all the other stuff that they do or don't do? I'm not saying that is the case with James Ward-Prowse. I just haven't seen enough of him. I've not watched enough of Southampton's games when they're on the telly. I tend not to watch them, unfortunately, because they're not the type of the team that I kind of get attracted to. So I think he'd come in and be a squad player, but would he come in and nail a starting place at Newcastle? I'm not convinced.
Yeah, Ian says the same. I think JWP would be a good squad player, and what's the betting that Eddie improves his game? Geordie Tune for Life though says, have you ever seen him dominate midfield? I haven't. It's not good enough. He's not good enough as an all-round player. Northumberland, Geordie, good afternoon. If we shore up the defence again, I'm confident of getting Champions League. Our defence seems very nervous the last month or so. Yeah, I thought at first it was because we were going a bit more gung-ho and going for it. And we've seen Wilson and Isak on the pitch together, for a few minutes now. But yeah, we've got this awful habit now of conceding early.
We have, and this is something that I've made a point of for a few weeks now, is that Newcastle's defensive record is really, really letting them down. You can't be going into games having to score 2 or 3 or 4 goals to win a game at this level now. You can't be doing it. As it gets to kind of squeaky bum time, to coin a phrase, you need to be resilient. You need to be resolute. You need to have that resolve about you. Newcastle would have won on Saturday if they just defended properly, and they didn't. Crosses coming into the box, or crosses are coming into the box too easily for my liking. I think we're not working hard enough as a unit to stop balls into the box. I think 1 or 2 players look a little bit jaded and fatigued, as I've said before. They're not quite at the peak of the game like they were previously, and the whole functioning of the team. I'm not putting this just down to the back four. I don't think the midfield's functioning as well as what it was. Obviously, Sean Longstaff's come out of there, who does a lot of good work offensively and defensively. Shifting Joe Linton and Joe Willock axis is kind of had an impact. Bruno's not quite there. So there's a number of reasons behind the drop off defensively for me, but if Newcastle keep clean sheets, they will qualify for the Champions League. But one clean sheet in the last 17 games is making it very difficult. They can still qualify for it and concede, goals and win games 2-1 or 3-2 or whatever. But it just makes it so much more difficult. Liverpool now have kept clean sheets in their last 3 games. They've won, 2 games 1-0, and then they've won 3-0 on Monday night. Man United have kept 2 clean sheets in their last 4 games and won both of those. So I think they do need to tighten up. I think for me, they need to potentially against Brighton. Like I say, I'm pulling a piece together on this. They just need to just maybe have a little bit of a more defensive approach or a little bit more measured approach, not making sure that they are combating Brighton's strengths. I'm trying not to be too negative about it, because I think Newcastle have done a lot of good things, right? And people quite rightly point out and say, well, why should Newcastle change what they're doing when it's got them to 3rd in the league? Let's continue doing what's worked so well for us. And it would be very difficult to argue against that. But I just think on the balance of the last half a dozen games or so, I think there needs to be a bit of a tactical change. Maybe not personnel change, but certainly a bit of a tactical change to shore up that defence and to make Newcastle harder to be more resilient. Remember them games against Man United at Old Trafford, against Arsenal at the Emirates. Newcastle were, other games as well, so hard to play against, so hard to break down and to get opportunities in. It doesn't feel that way at the minute. It feels Newcastle a little bit more open, a little bit easier to play against. They're not stopping the crosses or stopping the shots or stopping the opportunities coming in. And that for me is where if a change needs to be made, if it's a tactical approach, if it's a personnel change, that is the area that needs tightening up on for me.
Yep. Howard Webb apparently was on TalkSport this morning, and they're going to be a show now each week about VAR decisions, but it's not going to be ref watch. Interesting. Jimmy says what's worrying is we see the need that early goal against at times to really come into the game, and that's worrying. Yeah, it's not a good habit to get into. 3 of our back 5 have played in every league game this season. Maybe they're just tired. Who knows? Which of course, tiredness can come into it. At the moment, we need to score at least 2 to win a game. Might cost us a Champions League place. I hope not. Jimmy says, looking forward to Liverpool versus Villa this week. I can see Villa taking points from that fixture. I can too. I genuinely think that will be. But this is a pivotal set of fixtures, of course. So Newcastle need to win 2 games, and it's there. We're there. John says, do you think Eddie will consider changing tactics on Thursday? Brighton are an excellent counter-attacking unit, and the high press might play right into their hands. Any thought? It's a stinker of a game, this, Ross. It really is, because Brighton's a bit of a bogey team. The games are always awful to watch. It's a game we feel like we should win. And so often they've come and spoiled the party. We spoiled the party for them on a couple of occasions. They're not feasts of football, these games, I'm afraid, against Brighton. And of course, we've got long memories. Brighton and Trelford Mills back in the 80s. Dear me, how.
I think you're right. I think it's a really, really it's an awful game, this one. You're coming up against a team which on its day can take on and demolish, I think, any team in the Premier League. They've got a new manager, obviously, and I say new, he's been in obviously since September or whenever it was, but they've got a manager in place now in Roberto De Zerbi, who's recognised as one of the most exciting and tactically astute managers that have come out of the Italian game, and he's taken. I'm a massive Graham Potter fan. I think Graham Potter did a fantastic job at Brighton, but De Zerbi has arguably taken them on to that next level now, because he's married up. It looks like he's almost solved the issue that they had, where they couldn't score goals. Now they've gone and beaten Wolves 6-0. They've gone and beaten Arsenal 3-0 at the weekend. They've got real quality in their team, and what they do is they've got a very a very interesting kind of tactical approach. They almost invite on the press. They want teams to press them, and they almost taunt and tease and toy with teams and kind of want them to come in and overcommit themselves, and then bang, they play through the lines, balls out wide to Matoma and Sonny March or whoever it is, and then they're at you. And they're at you with 2 or 3 or 4 players just breaking really, really quickly on your defence. So that's why I'm saying that I think Newcastle have to be a bit more measured and a bit more disciplined in their approach. That's my opinion. And look, I'm no tactical expert. I'm certainly no Eddie Howe or anything else like that. And I'm not trying to tell Eddie Howe how to do his job, but that's just how I see it. I think the teams that have had success against Brighton recently have been Man United in the FA Cup semi-final and Everton. You know, with that game against Brighton, which was a freak result. But if you dig into it, if you look at it a little bit more, the both teams set up in a really rigid formation, very tight, narrow, stopped Brighton from playing through the lines. Didn't press. The centre forward didn't press. So for Man United, Martial didn't press in the semi-final. Calvert-Lewin didn't press for Everton. Let the 2 centre halves have the ball, but just cut off the passing opportunities, cut off the passing lines. And then when that ball broke down, they were at them. You know, Everton just, you know, almost 5 goals on the counter attack, breaking on them and letting Brighton have the ball, have possession. And Brighton like to have possession. It's a strategy that they want to have, a kind of high risk strategy of lots of possession and playing across the back and toying with the opposition. And then when they've overcommitted, they're at you. But so, you know, Brighton will have arguably more possession than Newcastle will on Thursday night. I'm fairly certain of that. It's just, can Newcastle keep calm, keep patient, be resilient, but not overcommit. Like I say, press still, but a patient press, and then pick them off after that. But it's a really, really tough game, this, Steve. If Newcastle can come through with 3 points from this, it'll probably, for me, it'll be their best performance and best result of the season.
Yeah, it's a cup final. There is no doubt about it. Scott says, afternoon, lads. Question for Ross. What do you think of the new Champions League format that will start next season? 36 teams in the league, 16 teams qualify for a knockout stage, 4 home and 4 away games.
Afternoon, Scott. Great that we're having these conversations, mine, isn't it, about the Champions League and what do we think about the Champions League format? It's been more, what do we think about the Championship format with under Mike Ashley? So it's great that we can have these conversations. I'm personally not a massive fan of the Champions League in its current format, and then being expanded into a different format with more teams. Again, it doesn't particularly appeal to me, but maybe I'll feel different if and when Newcastle are playing in it, you know, and the fixtures and the the mouth-watering games that'll come along will maybe change my mind. I think I personally think it's a bit of a kind of overblown competition, and a lot of the time it doesn't actually get that exciting until the latter stages, you know, until the quarterfinals, semi-finals, that sort of stage. You know, the group stages, you know, I find quite dull, to be honest. But again, that's maybe because, you know, I haven't got a horse in the race, if you like. It's not something that, you know, following Newcastle, that you've had to think about too much over the last 20 years. So maybe it'd be different if Newcastle qualify under the new format. But yeah, I'm not a huge Champions League fan in its current guise.
Yeah, doesn't the new Champions League format start in 24-25 and next season the old format still? I'm not sure, Darren. I've got to be honest. I'm a bit like Ross. I don't pay much attention to something that we're not involved in. That may change. Steve says, I'm not a Newcastle fan, but with a smile, does that mean Ashworth has been poached by you? Could be your best signing if that is so. Dan Ashworth is at Newcastle, Steve. Yeah, he came to Newcastle, quite a while back now. So yeah, we have got Dan Ashworth at Newcastle, and that was why there was a bit of interest in him being at the Liverpool game last night against Leicester. Maybe he was looking at Mo Salah as opposed to James Maddison. Who knows? If we come down to needing to win at Chelsea, and I pray it doesn't come to that, says Jimmy. I can see Sher smashing the 25-yard worldie for the win. Just an insight into my dreams at work. 5 qualify for the Champions League next season, says Geordie Tune for Life. Our ref on Thursday is from Merseyside, says Julie. Wow. Couldn't make it up, could you? Swanky Wags Julie also says, why not try out Trippier as right midfield, for example, Trent Alexander, and bring in Manquillo as right back so that the two Joes can batter the left side as usual? What do you think of that suggestion, Ross?
I like that. I actually like that suggestion. I actually do like that suggestion. I'm not. Maybe he's not Trippier as the right mid, but maybe he's Manquillo in front of it. I have thought about this because I just think Trippier is a lot more exposed on that side without Sean Longstaff in there. And I was thinking, could you bring Manquillo in somewhere and play that? I don't think Eddie Howe will for any stretch of the imagination. I don't think he'll go for that. I think it's probably too radical a kind of change at this point of the season. And like I go back to what I said previously, you think, well, this formation, this style, this way of playing has got Newcastle the third in the league. So why change? Why alter what you're doing? Because it's been successful so far. But yeah, that's something I have thought about. I do think that that kind of Big Joe, Little Joe combination on the axis down that left hand side, that being broken up has also impacted Newcastle. I'd be tempted against Brighton potentially if it was me to keep that left hand side combination, Joe Willock and Joe Linton, and maybe bring in somebody like Sean Longstaff on not Sean Longstaff, sorry. Sean Longstaff if he's fit, but if not, Elliot Anderson on that right hand side. Would that solve a problem? I know there's different players, Elliot Anderson and Sean Longstaff, but they've got the same energy, they've got the same kind of desire and hunger. I think Elliot Anderson's a bit more attacking wise, but it would enable the Big Joe, Little Joe combination to be reunited on that left side. So I don't know. There's lots of options. I think this is a really big selection test for Eddie Howe and his team. I don't expect him to make too many changes. I don't expect them to kind of rip things up and start again just because they've gone a couple of games without a win. But I do think there'll be a couple of 3 changes maybe from the Leeds game.
Yeah, good to see a few new faces in. Julie, welcome to the channel. Nice to have you here. Nice to have another female member of the chat. To coin a phrase, good to see you back as well. I agree you could play on the break, 5-3-2, add target and let Cher naturally step into midfield to make a back 4 during the game. Definitely something to look at maybe in the pre-season, depending on who we bring in, of course. But there's all kinds of things that they could do with with the formation. There's no doubt about that. Ross, would you take Sadio Mane and João Cancelo as their futures at Bayern look uncertain?
I would not take Sadio Mane, but I would snap your hands off João Cancelo.
Okay, I'd imagine Newcastle will go in 4th seed, so you'd imagine there'll be at least one big European away side in your group, if not 2, which is true, yeah. And I mean, that's the whole point of the Champions League, isn't it? Jimmy wants to know, where would you lads love to go and see us play in Europe? I'd love Borussia Dortmund for mine. The fans are nuts like ours, and that 80,000 stadium is beautiful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely be top of my list. Absolutely.
How is Murphy in midfield? We don't know, really. Not really seen a great deal of him there. We know he's a right, he plays well on the right, though. I wouldn't tinker too much with that. I've got to be perfectly honest. Jody Timberlake, Ross, that won't work having Anderson as a midfielder. He's left-sided player, not a midfielder, and Brighton are strong in midfield.
Yeah, you might be well be right. I think the midfield is going to be the key for this game. I think if Newcastle can win that midfield up against, which is arguably Brighton's strongest department, whether they play kind of Caicedo in there, Alexis McAllister in there, they like to flood that midfield. The 2 forwards kind of like to drop in, whether it's Welbeck or the Irish lad Ferguson up front. They kind of try to drop in there and flood the midfield and then pop it out wide. So Newcastle are going to have to box off that midfield. Going to have to be to flood it and cut off the passing lanes in there from the centre halves. I think that's where the game's won and lost for me is that midfield area, and maybe it's not the right game to bring in Elliot Anderson. Maybe you go with a midfield of Bruno and Joe Willock and Joe Linton. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what Eddie Howe goes with if Sean Longstaff doesn't recover in time.
Darren put this suggestion up earlier. I'd like to see Murphy start against Brighton with Isak and ASM. What's your thoughts on that?
I think Jacob Murphy has a chance of playing because of what he offers in terms of his work rate and his tactical acumen. I think Eddie Howe likes him in that he trusts him tactically as well if he's asked to do a job. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Murphy start. I'd be massively surprised if ASM started though. I'd be astounded if ASM gets the nod from the start, because I don't think this is the game tactically to put him in. But maybe he's Eddie Howe's got it. Maybe he wants to spring a surprise or has his kind of a cameo from ASM. Like I say, not for me, but we'll wait and see.
Newcastle take on Brighton at home this coming Thursday, 7:30 start, live on Sky Sports. It's a sellout as usual. Supermax at the Dog and Parrot, 5:45, returning at 9:45. Gibble and John Anderson at Pumphrey's in the Big Market, 5:45. Jamal Lascelles, Matt Ritchie, both out now for the rest of the season. Sean Longstaff, it's supposed that he could miss out. Let's hope we'll get a bit better news from Eddie Howe tomorrow. There's a doubt over Jacob Murphy as well. Obviously, he was on the bench at the weekend. We'll wait and see what happens with them. Brighton, early team news. Lallana, Solly March, Lamptey, Moda, Sarmiento, Webster are all anticipated to be absent due to injury. Of course, Brighton scored 3 goals without reply at Arsenal on Sunday. Their 8th Premier League away victory of the season, level with away victories, I think, with Newcastle. Robert Jones is referee. VAR is Jared Gillette. Let's get your prediction for this one, Ross.
I knew you were going to ask us this, Steve, because you obviously ask us it every week, and I can't call it. I really can't call it, and I'm scared. I'm almost a little bit scared to make a prediction because I think I'm either going to go too negative, and people are going to question the lack of positivity, or I'm going to go ultra positive and it's going to come back and bite us on the backside. I think it's a really tough one to call. I'm going to sit massively on the fence and go for a 2-2 draw.
Okay, 2-2 draw. Following that game, Newcastle play Leicester before our next show, which is our final home game of the season. 8 o'clock start, live on Sky Sports. Andre Mariner is referee and Darren England is on VAR. Prediction for Newcastle against Leicester?
I'm a lot more confident in this one, unsurprisingly. I think regardless of what happens on Thursday, Newcastle will be way too strong for Leicester on Monday, and I'm going to go for a 3-1 victory in that game.
And a prediction for Liverpool versus Aston Villa?
I see where people are coming from. Villa are a team in good form and chasing European spots themselves, and a good team. But I've said all along, I've said probably about a month out, I said I thought Liverpool would win the rest of their games to the end of the season. I'm not going to change my mind there. I think Liverpool at home at Anfield have got a fantastic record this season, and are just hitting form at the right time. They've turned themselves into that bit of that winning machine. So I think it'll probably be something like a 1 or 2-0 win for Liverpool against Villa. Which
means it'll go to the last game on those results. So Scott asks, do you think we'll qualify for the top 4? I believe Newcastle will. I think they'll eke out a narrow win against Brighton. They will beat Leicester comprehensively, and I think Newcastle will be in the Champions League this time next week. Do you think we'll qualify for the top 4, Ross?
I think it'll go at the final game. And then look, the pressure and the tension. Newcastle haven't been in this position before. We've seen with Leicester in previous seasons. Leicester got so close to Champions League a couple of last season or the season before, and just the pressure and everything like that, or the lack lack of what's the word I'm looking for, experience, the inexperience of being in them situations kind of let them down at the same time. I hope that doesn't happen with Newcastle. That is my fear. But let's be nice and positive and say, yeah, it's going to be a top 4 finish for Newcastle come the end of the season.
And quickly, Scott just wants to know, would you prefer to have the derbies back and Sunderland come up next season? They play Luton tonight. Personally, I wouldn't like them to come up, but that's just me. Personally, I would like to see Sunderland back up for the derbies. I would. We're not going to go down. I do miss the derby games. I had this conversation with somebody the other night. Middlesbrough, it's not the same. Although, either one coming up would give us an away trip, which is a one to look forward to. I don't want to say Leeds go down for the same reason. It's a good atmosphere, 2 good teams together, 2 good teams of fans, I should say, against each other, and it's a good atmosphere. But if it was a toss of the coin between Sunderland and Middlesbrough, I'm afraid I would like to see them coming up. Andrew wants 9 points coming up, and Sunderland in the Vanarama. Would you like to see Sunderland back up in the derby return?
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah, I think the games as fans, as journalists, as everything else like that you have that excited kind of anticipation ahead of, the nerves and everything else like that. They're fantastic occasions, provided that they're handled in the right way, on and off the pitch, and there's no silliness around them. They are fantastic, fantastic experiences. Fantastic games. I think Sunderland have been unbelievable this season, by the way. I know this is a Newcastle show, but I think the job that Tony Mowbray has done there this season is nothing short of incredible, with no defenders, no strikers, in a team full of kids. Let's see how they get on. It's a tough game at Luton tonight, though. Luton are a very physical and big team, and have a good atmosphere down there at their ground. So be a tough one.
Certainly will be. For sure, I'd love Sunderland back. I live in Australia. I'd love to get some payback, 6 points per season. Yes, please. Don't know how anyone's able to get amongst it. I wouldn't want it. Jimmy, thanks for your comments. Been great today. Good to see another Australian Newcastle United fan joining us. We've got a few these days and a few from America. Great to have so many people on. Julie, thank you. Enjoyed that. Thanks for the welcome. Cheers, Stephen Ross. Great to see so many new faces on, and of course, all of the regulars. I'll be back 5 o'clock tomorrow night with Liam Kennedy. But for now, Ross, have a good week, mate. Take care.
You too, Steve. Thanks, everyone.